Welcome to the Transport Leaders Podcast, where we discuss breakthrough ideas and bold solutions, transforming the future of transport around the world. G'day, I'm McCabe. I'm the founder of Step Advisory, transport planning and traffic engineering firm, and I've worked in consultancy and government for over 25 years across Australasia and Asia.
And good afternoon, good morning, hello. I am Russell King, and I've worked over for about 20 years in transport policy.
So we've been doing this podcast for a little bit now, so I think we're into a rhythm, Russell, where we don't need to do the full blurb. So for all those people who've been skipping over the first 30 seconds, now's the time to stop doing that going forward. So Russell, what are we going to talk about today?
I think our topic today, Graham, is going to be business cases.
Business cases. Okay. Business. That's something that sounds like it's to do with money and accountancy and running businesses, but it's not really what we're talking about, is it?
Well, we're talking about business cases for transport,
Okay.
which are I think it's fair to say a substantial industry within transport and a growing one as well. And also one that I think has quite a few controversies in it.
Controversies. So, I like a controversy.
Let's talk about and we'll get into those in the discussion, I think.
Spoiler.
Yeah. How many business cases have you done in your life?
I have been involved in about 4 or 5 big ones, so mega projects. I've done lots of simple business cases. So going back to early on in my career, doing cost-benefit analysis and justification as part of programs on individual small projects, and then later on getting into large business cases and also doing independent reviews of other people's business cases.
Perfect. You're going to be the expert today in the room on business cases.
Well,
and I'm going to be there.
No, I'm definitely not an expert on business cases. I'm a unqualified practitioner, I would say.
Okay, that's far better than me. So I get to have a read of these things and assess them and work out how do we use the business case for decision making, and that'll be my lens on this. But let's start at the very beginning. Why do we need a business case? What is the purpose of these things?
Well, it's for governments to make a decision about value for money. So treasuries say to transport agencies, we're not sure that you're spending money in the right way, and we have to compete against hospitals and schools and all the other nice things that government wants to spend money on. So government has to, the bean counters and treasury departments want to know, is the money that's being spent worth it? That's my understanding anyway.
Yeah, so there's a value for money element, but isn't there now a wider, and I think this is one of the trends in business cases towards more social value as well as sort of financial and economic value?
Well, this is where the bean counter piece comes in, and that you have wider economic benefits. So it's not just things like simple travel time savings or jobs created. It's improving health outcomes, education outcomes. It is
housing outcomes, place-based outcomes, all sorts of other stuff is now thrown in there, right in the mix.
Yeah. So a good modern business case can't purely be done by transport engineers. So, when I started out, we could do it all in a spreadsheet. You would put in your cost of construction, your travel time savings, your health, your crash savings, and amortize all of that over 30 years. And, you get a benefit cost ratio above a certain value. So that's at the most simplistic level. And then you might start looking at using strategic models to go up a level, or latterly starting to look at induced demand and things like that, and then more recently looking at those wider economic benefits. And the guideline in Australia is the Australian Transport Assessment and Planning Framework, and you can keep it very simple, or you can go through and look at all types of significant benefits that accrue across society. And that change is quite significant for things like active transport projects, where you're actually reducing the amount of money that people are spending within the economy, but you're improving health outcomes so that the government can spend less on the health system.
So when you say they're spending less money in the economy, that's not quite 100% accurate, is it? They're spending less money on transport.
Well, they could be saving instead.
They could.
Yes.
They could, but they could also be spending an element of that money as well. So it's not as though it's a one-for-one. Every dollar I save on travel, I'm going to be putting into savings, right? And that savings money then gets reinvested potentially as well by the banks into providing loans and other things as well.
Yeah,
so it's complicated. It's complicated, isn't it, in terms of all these things?
Yeah, there's a apocryphal economic analysis story that is it's better to spend money on roads to get people to drive-throughs, because people driving roads to get to your big burger chain are spending money in money's being spent in the construction and maintenance of the road and the driving, and then in the health system, dealing with the people who've consumed the burgers at the big burger chain, in comparison to an active travel project, which actually, those people, you're not spending as much money on construction, but you're getting a higher throughput. Maintenance is a lot less. Your people are healthier. So, all of your, gross domestic products, so money being spent in the economy, is your metric, rather than other outcomes, then you look at those things as being a negative externality, rather than all the good things that come from people not needing to drive cars.
Yes. Although it should be pointed out that the benefit cost ratio on active transport projects tends to be significantly bigger than non-active transport projects.
Now it is. Previously, 20 years ago, it wouldn't have been, because the value of travel, so the health benefits weren't considered. Yes. The value of travel time for an active transport user was considered to be significantly lower. So the fact of the trip taking longer, plus the lower value of the travel time savings, created negative benefit cost ratios.
Yes.
So business people in cars and freight are where all the money and travel time savings have historically been ascribed to.
Yeah. So let's talk about travel time savings, because they've been a core element of business cases for decades.
Yes.
Right? Give me the argument in favor of travel time savings being the be all and end all. And then, then let's talk about why there's been a lot of criticism of the travel time saving concept.
Okay. So, if you think about it, you have an intersection with lots of demand, or even a slow bus system. If you intersections, if you increase the capacity, then initially there's an assigned travel time savings, because more cars can get through. And as I said, relating to the value of people going to work or people traveling for work, they're given a higher economic value within the historical models. So initially you get a big saving, and that decreases over time. So you would model, depending on the project, you would start out by analyzing what happens if we make this change, and what does it look like in 10 years' time with background growth. And of course, that ignores induced demand.
Yeah.
And we've talked about induced demand previously. Link up here in the feed. So that the benefits that you think you are getting evaporate much more quickly. On the other side, with public transport, the benefits that you're getting actually accelerate because you're inducing demand towards the public transport, which is a high capacity mode, so you can actually get more people through. But even public transport projects, they can reach capacity faster than planned.
Yeah.
So that's the main thing about the travel time saving piece, is that we always treated it simply.
Yeah, so that's the calculation. So, but there's another kind of criticism of this, which is, so I get an extra 1 minute of travel time savings a day.
Yes.
Is that really valuable or not?
Yeah. Yes, and that's the one where, you know, I'm very much of the same view as you. So, you know, fierce agreement amongst two middle-aged white guys. Who would have thought?
Diversity of opinion is us. That's right.
Yeah, we're going to save 300 hours per week for all these people driving, and it's like, well, you know, if you save somebody 30 seconds as an average, then that gets rolled up into the models of everybody's saving 30 seconds. But in reality, you know, if you're saving 30 seconds, you've probably built a 5 or 10 minute leeway in your travel pattern anyway. So you get to work to the shop 30 seconds earlier. Do you actually get any real value out of that? So if we are counting travel time savings, I'm a firm believer of it must actually have a useful value to a person. So it's either improve their reliability of getting somewhere, they've, you know, got less stress, or they actually can do something with that time.
Yeah. Now, if you're looking at an individual junction, because that was the example we looked at, and you're building your induced demand, but you're only doing your induced demand for that junction, aren't you? So you're not looking at...
Yeah. So there's always a project scope boundary. So there's a blob drawn around the externalities of the project, because you can't analyze everywhere every single time, because you can't calibrate the model. And so if you don't use big strategic models to look at individual junctions or intersections.
The challenge the issue I have is, I think that we rarely, if ever, model the system impacts of lots of little project changes, because every year there's lots of changes to the roads, improvements in inverted commas, which then accumulate into a system-wide impact, but that never gets evaluated in there.
It does, in that most of the strategic models have a assumed forward base case in them. So here's all the little projects that are assumed to have been done within a 5-year period. So they do have that, but when we're just looking at a junction or a group of junctions, then no, we won't look at the upstream or downstream effects until it has an impact. So if you improve one junction, that releases a whole heap of traffic to go down to the next junction. And this is the problem with freeway widenings. is you remove a bottleneck and it just creates a new bottleneck somewhere else.
Yeah.
And often due to programming constraints, you can't go, or sometimes they know it's known that it will happen, but there isn't the money or the time to do the works. And I mean, we'll get into options analysis in a second, but the alternate options are very rarely don't do this project.
Let's go there then, right? In terms of don't do this project. So let me start with the first problem that I have with business cases, because you said Treasury puts in a request to say, you need to justify this project, please develop a business case. Okay. Now for me, right from the off, you are building in an inherent bias, right? Because if the transport agency has reached the stage, because there's a bunch of stuff before a business case where a transport agency is thinking about a project. If it's getting to the point where it's actually going to put resources into a business case, it's relatively quite committed to the project already.
It is, and it's very hard to get a truly independent analysis of a business case. So sticking with our favorite location of Sydney, the M5 East motorway.
Sorry, just to clarify, your favorite location currently, my favorite location for maybe another week before I move to Adelaide. Yes.
It's favorite in terms of know the most
transport examples. Yes.
So it runs parallel to a railway line, which at that point was 2 tracks. When it was being considered, there was a business case, but the alternative wasn't to improve the railway line and provide more bus services to connect to the railway line. The alternatives were different alignments for the motorway.
Yeah.
Or upgrading the arterial road network. And if I'm the project manager and I'm engaging you to do the business case, and you say, Graham, why don't we look at this thing, which means you don't have a project anymore?
Yes.
And possibly a job if I'm a contractor.
Yes. So let's deal with this problem, right? Because I think this is a really big issue. There are so many inherent biases in the transport agency doing its own business case. Okay. And within that, and this is true around the world, business cases often get done by transport agencies who are mode focused rather than mode agnostic.
Yes.
Right. So you end up with a bus, agency focusing on doing the business case for a bus project, or a rail, a rail operator, doing a business case for rail operations. Okay. Whereas in pure terms, a strategic business case should be doing its options, shouldn't it? It should be it should start off from a mode agnostic perspective, look at what the problem is you're trying to solve, and then go, what's the options for solving this?
Yes. So, going back to our discussion about high-speed rail in Australia.
Good example.
That strategic business case has predetermined that there is high-speed rail, and then there are different options being considered.
Yes.
They probably looked at improving the existing railway line, but they are an agency whose title is the High Speed Rail Authority of Australia.
Yes. It was very much assumed that they were they were not considering options. They were really considering options within the high speed rail concept.
Yeah. Yes. So alternatives, rather than
no alternative modes.
Is this project? So a lot of treasuries agencies around the world use staged business cases. So you'll have a strategic or concept business case, which is this the thing we want to do? So that would be, is it high-speed rail versus improving the existing commuter rail?
Yeah.
And then you would have a next level, which is the alternatives assessment, which is which alignment should we use? How many stations should we have? Which is really where High-Speed Rail Authority in Australia is at the moment.
Yeah.
Then
Now,
you go into...
Yep. Sorry, just the strategic business case is also often the one that gets bypassed for political reasons.
Or they call the alternatives assessment business case the strategic business case.
Yeah, but it's often the one that gets removed from the list in a sense because politicians have promised to do an upgrade to a motorway. They promised an extra lane somewhere, and so the options around not doing the extra lane and doing dedicated bus lane or whatever it is that your alternative are discounted. So effectively the strategic business cases become much less useful for exploring options because the option has already been decided.
Yeah, and then it's around, well, is the thing that you say you want to build the best way to spend that money to achieve the outcome that the politician has asked for?
Well, the politician is committed to. It's kind of like...
Oh, sorry. In terms of going to the agency and saying, I want this thing, but politicians sometimes will say, we will put an extra lane on the freeway. So then it's just, you can basically skip the first couple of stages and go, okay, well, how do we build an extra lane on the freeway for, the lowest cost?
Yes.
So you're getting into like the third stage of, this is the thing that we want to build. We know what it looks like. How do we build it in the most effective, least cost manner?
Yeah. So because of this, there's a whole bunch of inherent biases in here. If you have the transport agency doing the strategic business case or the business case, for me, that sort of significantly undermines the usefulness of business cases in the first place. Because there's an inherent optimism bias. And I know that they try to deal with that optimism bias, right? But it is very difficult. In there, it's amazing how many projects that don't quite meet up to the match up to the business case expectations when they're reviewed at the end of the process, although a lot of that's not very transparent.
Yeah, and what they should be using the systems engineering V approach, which is you're always looking back to the stated objective and outcomes.
Yeah.
Which a lot of projects don't do. So, I've seen bus priority projects which add traffic lanes, and it's like, well, the buses are in the traffic. It's so we're reducing travel time, so that's a bus priority project. Well, that doesn't really work as a bus priority project because you're just inducing more car traffic.
Yes.
It will be passed off as a bus priority project. So the systems engineering approach of, well, will this actually get more people using buses in the long term and improving travel time reliability for bus customers? You fail, but if you don't look back, then you can't know that you failed.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
You've moved on to the next project anyway, because it's a lot of people are output focused, not outcome focused in project world.
Yes.
I've got a budget, I've got a timeline. What gets me under budget within the timeline, so I can tick it off and move on to my next project, saying, hey, I'm a good project manager.
yeah, benefits delivery is never the focus on evaluating project managers, right?
Yeah.
Which is a real problem for us. And the other thing, so I mean, that does raise one of the points of a business case in a purist model, okay, is so that you can go back and review and go, okay, this is what the business case was trying to deliver. This is why this project was what it was trying to deliver. How did it actually do against that? Rather than having nothing there at all and then trying to work out retroactively when you're doing the review, what was this thing trying to achieve? So that is one of the purposes of the business case as well, is to enable that sort of holistic life cycle of the project evaluation. But it just rarely happens, as you say.
Yeah, well, so business case reviews, once you get to the stage of doing detailed design, so you might have at your strategic level, you'll have something that's maybe using aerial photos, and we're going to go from here to there. At the alternatives, you might have a 15% concept design, so you can know order of magnitude costs. The next level down, you might be at 30 or 50% design. But when you're getting to that level of design, a reviewer saying, "Hey, hold on a second, you're starting to get major problems in your project," doesn't result in them going, "Oh, maybe we need to go back a step or two," because they're still trying to follow the timeline. They go, "Oh, we'll just put more money in." And okay, yes, you've highlighted this issue. We'll request some contingency so that we can look at it after we've finished delivering the project.
And this is an important point, isn't it? Because theoretically, you're not supposed to be committed to the project until your final business case is complete. And it's supposed to be, are we approving this project or not? Whereas in reality, the project's already often been committed to somewhere before the final business case sign off publicly, even if it hasn't been approved officially within the government.
Yeah, and this is where politics comes in, because by the time you get to that third level, there's probably been a ministerial announcement.
So when you say third level, which level do you mean here?
So you're starting to do quite a level of detail in your work. So
final business case or afterwards you're talking about?
No, this is before final business case.
Yeah.
So the minister's been briefed, and there's a big where I think your experience comes to the fore. Minister's been briefed. Mitigation measures have been worked out, and if there's impacts, and the minister's been briefed and gone, I love these mitigation measures, I want to announce them now.
Yeah.
And then if you have to change the project and the mitigation measures are no longer required, but they're really good mitigation measures because they deliver some community benefit that was a payoff for the impact. The community will still want the benefit, even if the thing that's causing it's no longer required.
Yes, indeed. Which gets us onto the whole decision making versus announcement process, and what you should do when is a challenge in this process, which to some extent undermines one aspect of the business case, which is it's supposed to enable decision making. And in many cases, it doesn't affect decision making at all. If the business case was there, or whether it wasn't, the decision has already been made.
Yeah, and the other aspect of business cases, which I think ideally you like, is that they are thinking slowly. They're supposed to be thinking slowly, acting quickly, getting your project right before you go to construction, and then constructing quickly and correctly because you know all of the issues.
Yeah, so this is a really interesting aspect of business case, right? Because I think it's fair to say, correct me if I'm wrong, but my impression is that the cost of doing business cases has ballooned over the last 20 years.
Yeah, so a lot of the activities that would have been done when a project was granted funding, so detailed design, site investigations, things like boreholing, environmental studies. They might have been done at the the environmental impact assessment stage, or they might have been done as part of the pre-construction detailed design, or they might have been done by a tender as part of a private sector delivery project. A lot of those activities have moved forward into the business case. So what might have been a 100-page business case is now thousands and thousands of pages. A lot of which never see the light of the day unless they're included in the environmental impact assessment.
So this, I have two issues with this, right? So one is that not only costs a lot more money for that business case stage, okay, but it also creates a huge amount of extra time for that business case stage.
Yes.
Right.
Well, and it also creates duplication, because when you go to use a private contractor to build the project, they will be given a reference design, which is very detailed from the business case team.
Yeah. So all of this it's not adding time necessarily to the final, end-to-end cost of the project, because theoretically some of that work should have just been moved rather than be done. But it does impact in terms of decision-making timelines, right? Because the longer a politician has to wait for the business case to come to their desk, the more tempted they are to make a commitment before the business case gets there.
Yeah.
Right? Because potentially of an election cycle. So, it's like, I started a business case 2 years ago. I want the final business case before I'm going to commit to this project. And then they come back and say, well, sorry, because it's now going to take 3 years to produce this business case. It'll be post the election. They'll be like, the politician will go, sod it, we'll commit to it in the election then. So it's undermining the decision-making aspects of what the business case is trying to do. So what's the logic on moving these things forward? Is it simply because it's thinking slow, building fast, or is there more to it than that?
Well, so it's the externalization of work. So things that were previously done in-house by government agencies and now done by consultancies. If we go back far enough, freeways were designed internally by government agencies.
But why has that changed? Why has that changed? Why has this changed when these studies happen? Why do these studies now happen in the business case stage? Because for me, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't matter whether it's a government employee or a contractor. The timing of when you do something is agnostic on who does the work, isn't it? What's driving the change of the timing?
Well, no, because the government employees might have been given, we know we will need to build this freeway in 5 years' time, and you may have had somebody working away on it for that period of time, and they were just beavering away at it in preparation for the need being revealed. And that's actually, a lot of strategic transport planning is like that. Used to call it the bottom drawer. Projects will get, designs, concepts done. Then they would be shelved, and then they'd be ready to be pulled out of the bottom of the drawer when there was a change in political winds or budgets.
Because all of this is if you don't have a proper strategic plan as to what the priorities are for your transport system, then you're kind of flying quite blind, or these
Yeah.
things might be being worked up in order to create a strategic plan as well, I suppose.
Yeah. So a lot of the business, so a lot of the design activity and costing and all of those things have been brought forward through premature announcements and budget and time blowouts. So people over promising and under delivering on projects for whatever reason. And lots of projects that have gone over time or over budget all have different reasons, like Westgate Tunnel, discovery of very, very seriously contaminated lands on the western side of the Yarra River mouth. Push that project out by 5 years. Could that have been found in the business case process? Possibly, possibly not. They might not have found that land, like what happened until they were out on site excavating.
I mean, let's be honest,
It
we're
might
not
not
in
have
a
been picked up
scenario.
in the boreholes.
Yeah, so we're not in a scenario at the moment, right, where despite having added on significant costs to our business cases, that we are seeing our projects at the end of the process delivering more projects on time and on budget. That's not the narrative that's going around projects right now. Is that we're seeing really successful delivery of on time and on budget, and that's because we're doing lots of detailed work in the business case stage. That is not what the narrative is around transport projects around the world, is it?
It's not, except when you have replication. So the Anglosphere, all our projects are unique. So you mobilize a team, you demobilize a team. You might be building a road or a rail tunnel. So you go out to the consultant world and go, okay, well, you go out to construction world and you say, okay, global construction companies bid for this tunnel, and then they will go and get consultant teams, and consultant teams will go, well, here's the best rail or road tunnel person, and we'll bring them into the project. So you don't have any local knowledge, experience, or understanding.
But you
have the best tunnel person.
Yes. So, and this is a really important thing here in terms of what we're trying to do in this piece by expanding the size of the business cases is theoretically better decision making. So if the business case discovered, that there's a large amount of contaminated land, and so the project's been added, several $1 billion of costs to it, you have the opportunity to say no. That's the theory.
Yes. Yeah. You.
Okay.
So Westgate Tunnels are a private sector led project, so that's probably not the best example, but there are other ones where, government has discovered massively contaminated land and went, we're still going to go ahead anyway. Yeah. We've made a promise to the community, which has nothing to do with a business case. That's a political decision.
Yeah, they've already made the commitment before the business case. So one of the key things here is there's undermining the business case concept is it's not actually being used for a lot of decisions. Some decisions it's used for, but there's a lot of decisions that are being made without the business case being done. There's a commitment to do these things. The federal government hasn't set up a high-speed rail authority, right, with the expectation that the business case is going to come back, it's going to be poor, and therefore we won't proceed with the project.
Yeah,
that's not a realistic scenario under this current prime minister, right, in Australia.
So the business case is serving two purposes. One, assuring government that money is being spent wisely, and two, saying that the project is the best of the options that are available. Yeah,
both of which tend to get ignored by the politicians.
Yeah. Well, you've advised the politicians, so
it was different when I was there.
Did your politicians ever? Oh, and you were a politician. Did you or your politicians, ever go into a cabinet meeting and go, actually, we don't need this project anymore?
I killed some projects in the very early stages at strategic
So
business case.
yeah.
Okay, when they didn't stack up. So this was so I think, in fairness to the minister and I had conversations very early on when I first started advising him, and said, look, let's have a conversation about what we're going to say around business cases and stuff, and announcing projects and timescales, etc., and timelines. And we talked about the pros and cons of the different approaches, and we talked about how you deal with things where there was publicly known that work was being done, but the business case hadn't been finalized yet, etc. Okay, and we agreed that we would not announce projects effectively until the final business case was approved. Okay, now that was within our office, but there was a project that was announced, by Premier's office, because the Premier's office knew we were doing work on a project. It was way before we were ready to, approve it even at strategic business case level, alone final business case level. But that was their prerogative, right? So these things happen.
Yeah. So that's really interesting. So you've managed to put some rigor into a strategic business case process, which I'm sure there is, within government. I mean, there's, nobody within government is saying let's spend millions of dollars on something that is not worth doing. It's not the reason why people go to work in government. They go to work because they want to deliver a better outcome for the community. Yeah, that's generally why people enter public service. So things have lost their way somewhere.
Well, there becomes political challenges, right? So I'll give you an example. The Western Airport, the Western Sydney Airport, and putting the rail line in there. So
I know it very well.
Yeah. So the project, for those that don't know, is the airport is a federal project taking place in New South Wales. Okay. Now, when the airport was approved, one of the things that we needed to think about was, in the longer term, was the rail line connecting to the airport. Yes. And so there was, and I helped to make this happen, there was a joint rail needs study between the federal government and the state, okay, to look at the needs for rail for the new airport. And the conclusion of the rail needs study was that the rail line wasn't needed for several decades, it wasn't justified for several decades, but that you would want to preserve a corridor, and that you would want to have a station box built into the airport ready for as and when you wanted to connect the rail line. So, right, so the result was a station box was built for the airport, and there was work started doing on corridor preservation for the rail line. Okay, and looking at the options around the rail line. Then, what happened was the polling for the airport was that in the local area, which is a very marginal seats and important for federal government, was that the public wanted to see a commitment to a rail line from the opening of the airport. And so there was a commitment made to do that by the Prime Minister of the day.
So just to give you some context, I was leading the transport planning for the airport at the time.
Fair enough. I did not know that. Go on.
Yes. So, my name.
Is there anything I've said is not true? Then have you got a different perspective?
No. So everything you've said there is correct. Though the timing of the railway line, it may be a little bit different. I'm going to be quite careful in what I say here, because so. Yes, and if anyone reads the Environmental Impact Assessment Transport Report, Appendix J, you will see that there is no mention of a railway line at the year of opening.
Yes.
And that the demand for public transport to the airport is very low. And that's for workers and passengers as well, because of the way that Western Sydney is set up and where the workers and passengers are likely to live. They are going to be living in areas that are not connected to that railway line. And so the environmental assessment considers two stages: the year of opening and the long-term plan with the second runway, where the airport hits 80 million passengers annually, so about 120,000 people per day moving through the airport. And that definitely has an assumption of one, if not two, rail links to the airport. So yeah, the rail link is not an airport demand driven project.
Yes. So that's an example. That's just an example of how decision making around business cases is politicized. The other question for me is, we keep adding more and more things in to the business case. Okay, concept. As I say, at the moment, it's not translating into it's not translating into better decision making. I still think we build far too many projects with weak business cases. We also, it's not translating into better, projects being on time and on budget generally. Although I think there are some examples where it's not like the business case that's driving that. It's, as you say, it's much more systematic about how they build teams with capability to repeat projects in other jurisdictions, right? But we're adding other things in there. So, and have we got sort of an obsession because, we're talking about traffic engineers here and transport engineers who like to measure things. And I wonder whether we've got an obsession with trying to measure everything in a false understanding that it's actually adding value for the cost that it's taking up. And I'll give you an example of the latest one. So the guidance in New South Wales has recently added measuring the carbon emissions aspects of transport projects. Okay, and that sounds reasonable. I'm not a climate change denier or anything like that at all, and someone who wants to see us reduce our carbon emissions significantly and as quickly as possible. But I do wonder whether it's actually adding any value, because the argument I saw from people was, this is great. When people will be able to see the carbon emissions on these transport projects, they will build less roads and they will build more active transport as a consequence. And I'm like, politicians already know that roads create more carbon emissions than bike lanes do. This is not going to be adding any useful information to their decision-making contemplations. Okay, so if they were already focused on carbon emissions as a key determinant, they would already be building less roads and more active transport and more public transport. But because they already know that. Now, the actual quantity in terms of the carbon emissions won't make a difference to their decision making, right? It's just because they already know that at a broad level, it's they already know what the answer is anyway. So I question whether, and I understand the desire to measure everything, okay, but I do wonder whether it's adding value at the business case level to further add even more requirements, and whether it will actually make an improvement to the decision making.
Yeah, and I was having this discussion last night about measuring things. So when we set KPIs, so reducing carbon, for example, in construction. So you say, well, we've got to reduce the carbon in our transport system construction by 5%. Then you have to measure it. And then you have to measure each individual project. So what's it? Oh, well, we'll just bundle that up into a stage of the business case.
Yeah.
So it's, if you're going out to a contractor and their consultants, or directly to consultants, but you've been told, well, you have to look at heritage, contamination, waterways, plant life, animal life, carbon, all these other things, and your project management team, you've got limited bandwidth, and you go, oh well, I'll just roll it all up into a mega design contract, and then rely on that these people know what they're doing, and maybe we'll get another company to be the independent verifier for that work. So it becomes easy. But from a project perspective, doing it all at the same time reduces your workload and your effort required.
Okay, so basically by doing it, you're saying rather than doing it later on in the process, do it while you're doing all the other things, because it makes sense. You kind of get,
yeah, you get economies of scale. You have, you're dealing with, a smaller number of project managers on the design and delivery side, because they're the ones who are, making, the contractor's project manager is making sure that their consultants are doing the carbon report. You're not having to make sure that there's a carbon report, delivered after before the project's built, so that government can report on its carbon reporting requirements. It's moved down the value chain, and hopefully you're spending your time on more important things, like making sure that the project's actually delivering the outcome.
Yes.
That's in an ideal world.
Yeah. And so the question for me is, because there's lots and lots of these things now built into business cases, right? And the question for me is, has it helped? Right? Is it actually helping us in terms of outcomes? And when I look at our transport systems and I look at the success of our projects, the answer is not really, right? It's not as though I see, as we've matured our business case processes, made them bigger, more complicated, more expensive, okay, have I seen better decision making in our transport systems? No. Are projects more reliably on time and on budget? No. All right. And there seems to be a kind of rationale which goes, but if we just do this lot more, add more stuff to the business case, okay, and make it this much more, accurate in terms of measuring things, it will get better. But this does feel like an argument that we have been having for basically since the creation of business cases, and it doesn't seem to be moving the needle. So I'm kind of like, I mean, I'm someone who believes in sort of the evaluation of the benefits, etc. on it. But what I'm quite questioning is whether we've turned this into such a massive job, right? And actually we would get 80% of the benefits that a business case could do with 20% of the effort. Okay. And then if you, because I can understand, like, and don't get me wrong, I'm a big believer as well in, do the detailed design before you do the construction. Okay. That think slowly, build fast kind of concept. Okay. I'm just questioning whether you should be doing so the thinking slowly for me is kind of 3 stages. Think slowly up front at the strategic business case level about your options. Okay. Actually come up with good options, which doesn't happen very often. Okay. Far too much, as you say, it's kind of like, it's a road project. We've decided it's a road project. Then there's a kind of, then there's the final business case, and it's kind of like, where do the stations need to be? Kind of thing, if it's a rail line, right? and getting to that. And then there's a detailed design phase for me. Okay, beyond that. Now, a lot of that detailed design stuff is now being moved into that final business case stage.
It is, yeah. And
right.
I think
and the thing is,
yeah.
There should be, for me, you want to get the final business case done to a level where you can make as good a decision as possible. Okay, not to proceed with the project.
But then you need politicians who can say, well, we think it's X billion dollars, but it could really be Y billion dollars once we do the detailed design.
Yep. And I had this exact conversation with the minister. And the ministers, and we came up with a phrase that the minister would use, and he said, people, the journalists want to know, how much is this going to cost, minister? Okay, and the minister said, we're busy doing our homework. Once we've done our homework, we'll tell you how much it's going to cost.
Yeah, which I recall created lots of this thing's going to blow out angst in the media. They're hiding the numbers because they don't want to say how horrendous it is. But I think the other key problem with business cases,
just on that,
is they are output focused. The output is the project, and they're not outcome focused.
Yes, definitely.
And we need to move back to what's the outcome that we're trying to get, not the kilometers of shared path that are being built. Using active transport as an example, do people feel more comfortable riding a bicycle in this area? Do they ride a bicycle in this area? Not, oh, we went from 2% to 3% mode share. Well, that's, great. But if you're getting, middle-aged white guys in Lycra, you're not really getting, creating a transport system that works for people. And one of the things I tell people when I'm running workshops on strategic transport plans is ignore outputs, focus on outcomes.
Yes, and I think defining those outcomes is a real skill that we lack generally.
Yes.
The amount of times you see them outcomes as vague, very vague. Not measurable in any way, not thinking about how you would actually be able to know whether you've met this outcome or not. There's a lot of stuff to be learned there. Okay, let me move on to a slightly different topic within business cases. AI, flavor of the month. Can AI help us to speed up and reduce the costs of business cases?
Given that AI is a heuristic, and then it's taking what's been done before, it can speed up replicating things that have been done before and identifying gaps. So, all these other business cases have dealt with carbon. Yours doesn't. Do you want to deal with carbon?
Yeah.
Here's ways how you can quickly measure carbon.
Yeah.
So it could be really good for strategic business cases in assisting those. So, maybe it could have an effect on the consultancy industry of, we've gone through 5,000 business cases around the world. Here's the ones that were successful. Here's how they measured things. You could possibly do the same.
Yep.
It might also be good at identifying flaws within business cases. So, yep. You're saying that, travel time's your key driver of this project. Here's 10,000 projects around the world where all those travel time savings evaporated within 2 years.
Yeah. And there could also, on related topics of that, also it could incorporate the latest academic evidence much more effectively as well, right? So if academic evidence is showing, here's the latest thinking around, mode shift from particular interventions, then if your numbers are very varied completely differently from that, it can highlight that and say you need to check these numbers and make sure that these numbers remain valid based on the latest evidence, right? That sort of thing.
Yeah, and that translation piece from the latest academic research into practice, I think that's something that we've been historically terrible at, and it is something where I actually see value in AI, so long as the AI is not filled with fake papers, which is becoming a very significant problem of people using AI to write and get published fake papers, which are then retracted. Not sure how much is happening in the transport industry, but certainly in the biosciences industries, it's happening a lot. But translation is a really interesting topic, which I think we should save for another podcast. And why don't we, call it there, and get ourselves ready for the next topic next week.
I think we'll have to come back and revisit on business cases, but I think maybe one of the things I'd like to focus on in another podcast is delivering actual outcomes.
Yes,
because I think there is a massive gap between what is delivered on approved on a business case and what's actually the outcomes that are delivered.
I think outcome-based planning and engineering is that's definitely worth a deep dive.
Yes, I think we should go for that at some point.
Yeah.
Let's but good to talk to you again, Graham, as always.
Yes, good to talk to you, Russell. And if you like our podcast, please give us a big thumbs up wherever you're finding us, whether it's LinkedIn, YouTube, or Patreon, or feeds. And if you really, really like what we're doing, you can buy us a bus ticket or a train ticket. New South Wales prices, not Queensland ones, over at Patreon. And we'll talk to you next time. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. See you soon.